Hey again everyone, sorry I wasn't able to put out any videos last week. It was a very busy week. I finally got around to doing something I've been meaning to do for several years. I built a sim pit. Now it's not a true 100% accurate to the F-16 or F-16C kind of sim pit. In fact, it's a hybrid sim pit that I mean to be good with space sims, flight sims, and even allow me to use some other favorites, like that new extremely thought-provoking space combat sim Nebulous, or some of my favorite wargame simulators such as Command Modern Operations. And the entire sim pit honestly didn't cost that much money. I made it from a spare desk I had around the house, rearranged some things, put the HOTAS on some proper desk mounts, got a couple inexpensive tablets to serve the role of a pair of universal MFDs. You know, I'm going to do a video on it not long down the line, how to make an affordable hybrid sim pit which you can use to play almost any sim, and yet leaves your system free to do other things if you're interested in things like Command Modern Operations, more action-oriented things like Squad. We'll check it out later. So we're now into Red Flag Mission 5 for the F-16. As the Red Flag missions go, this is a relatively brief mission, taking under an hour. And it's a nice change of pace from the air-to-ground focus. In this mission, we're going to get some air-to-air practice by getting up in the sky and shooting down a few fighters. So, as covered before, these videos are not about how to use the individual systems and components of the F-16 Viper, but rather how to put it all together, think tactically, fly well, and give you the best odds of succeeding at your missions. And that's really important in the Red Flag campaign because the skills you learn here, you'll apply in any other individual missions or complete campaigns that you might undertake. Happily, with the latest patches, ATC at Nellis is working again, and we've already gotten clearance to get up in the air and get underway. Fuel is not really a concern in this brief mission, so even though we aren't carrying much of a load, just a few air-to-air missiles and our guns, I'm going to go ahead and hit the afterburners and get us off the ground. Really love the F-16 Viper. There's just such a sense of power and freedom in this plane. Taking off is such a pleasure. Now if you look at the lower right MFD, you'll see our navigation points. One's inclination might be to head to the steer point that appears to be just in front of the Viper, bearing about 225, but that's actually our return steer point. At just about the racetrack here, we're going to brake left and come back about 180 degrees to head to steer point 1. Now just about the time that we hit steer point 1, we're going to get a call to set for channel 13, contact our opponent, and get ready for a practice air-to-air engagement. That first air-to-air engagement, the enemy is about 60 miles away, so you'll be engaging BVR, or beyond visual range. You might as well go ahead and turn on your master arm, and leave your radar on for this one. We're not really aiming to be sneaky, though I guess we could be, but what we're really aiming to do is practice BVR attack and defense. And the best way to do that in this particular circumstance is just go ahead and have your radar on. You should also be familiar with how to set your HUD and your MFDs as sensor of interest or SOI, but I suggest that when you get the call to engage, you just go into missile mode, which will default to the left MFD as SOI. Alright, they're going to go ahead and call us in a moment. Let's just listen to what they have to say and be ready to switch to comms 13 if you haven't done so already.
Call 1, Nellis departure. Clear scheduled via 60's common airspace. Contact Blackjack UHF channel 13.
Go to your comms 1 menu and quickly switch to channel 13 now.
Blackjack, Colt 1 as fragged.
Colt 1, Blackjack, cleared tactical, contact Flanker 1.
Flanker 1, Colt 1 radio check.
Flanker 1, loud and clear. We'll start with that 2 versus 2 tactical intercept as briefed. Flanker 1, ready.
You should already be pulling into the steer point, but be sure to watch your RWR and aim for the enemy's signal.
Colt 1 ready.
Fight's on.
Engage bandits. So about as soon as you get that message to switch to channel 13 and contact the enemy, go ahead and pull a tight turn right and line up on the next steer point. You really should at the same time go ahead and push for afterburners. Remember, the faster you're traveling when you launch your missiles, the more energy your missiles will have. This will allow them to travel further and increase their odds of being able to hit the enemy. And you should be in Blade Land or above. Blade Land starts at around 20,000 feet, it's where airfighters fly efficiently, but I would really suggest you go ahead and aim for about 25 to 30 angels, because the enemy I think comes in around 25 to 27 angels, and you're going to want to at least match them for altitude. Again, you're trying to give your missiles, your AMRAAMs, as much energy as possible, and that's going to require speed and altitude. Now I've gone ahead and put my ship into missile mode. On my HOTAS, that's just clicking back on the boat switch, and my left MFD is now SOI, relating a top-down view of what I can see with my air-to-air radar. And when that MFD is SOI, you can move the cursor with your mini stick. It's convenient that moving the cursor up will increase your radar range view, and moving it down will automatically decrease the radar range view on that MFD. By placing the cursor over the enemy contact, I can see his range. I can't lock him just yet though. The symbol is still hollow. As soon as the symbol is full, it means I have enough data to be able to lock him. There, he went full, and I locked him with TMS up, and on the HUD, we can see his position relative to the nose of our aircraft, just upper right center of the middle of the HUD. Now I'm going to largely level off and keep my afterburners at full. He's just a little higher than me, so I really want to maximize my speed before I launch those AMRAAMs. My wingman is a little more aggressive than I am. He'll launch now. But I'm going to withhold my own shots until the enemy fires. There's lots of cover down below, so I don't see the need to fire all that quickly. And getting in closer before shooting will give my missiles more energy. Now Bitch and Betty is telling me that the Sukhois have locked me and recommending I employ countermeasures. They've also opened fire, so I'm going to return fire with 2 Fox 3s, 2 AMRAAMs. You might have noticed as we were flying, I was looking down constantly to find the best ground cover that I want to use to defend against the enemy missile locks. And the very best cover is going to be mountains as high as possible, especially if they run in ranges that are about 90 degrees to the direction of the incoming missiles. And that's just down there to my left, so I'm going to dive down there, full afterburners on, and at the same time I'm going to release about a dozen chaff and flares in quick succession. I really want those missiles going after something besides me. The F-16 is a speed demon. We are going well above Mach 1 right now. When evading missiles, don't get so caught up in running that you run smack into the ground. Drop a few more chaff and flares, just to further confuse those missiles, but I'm pretty sure we've lost them now, and odds are good we've hit the other guys.
Okay, Cold Flight, let's go ahead and split up for some 1 versus 1 training.
Well, I don't have to worry about evasion anymore. That message means we got them. Now the next step of this mission is a demonstration of the enemy fighter's capabilities. And the AI pilot is going to show us just what a J-11A, aka the Su-27, is capable
Stay in a
of.
loose observation position so you can follow along as I run through this. Let me know when you're ready. Now roll rate and roll response is going to be good throughout the flight envelope. I'll demonstrate a couple at close to max rate.
If you're unfamiliar with DCS and ultra-realistic combat flight sims, it's a good idea to watch how the Su performs. And even if you are familiar with DCS, it's still a good idea to pay attention and try more or less to stay in position behind them, as it's pretty good practice for formation flying. Not great because it's, well, I guess you would say it's an extremely loose formation, but still it's practice. And finally, it gives you some practice keeping your eyes on the enemy. If you don't learn to become good at that, you will get shot down repeatedly. Alright, he's demonstrated some rolls and braking maneuvers, now he's demonstrating his afterburners, and then he's going to do a pretty cool demonstration of the Cobra, which is an occasionally useful combat maneuver, though some might say it's occasionally a suicide combat maneuver, but hey, everything is, you have to know when to use what.
Now my speed brake is very effective. It'll give me an advantage if I find myself in a position where I need to decelerate rapidly. I'll extend or retract it now so you can have a look. You can see it up on top of the airframe.
We'll zoom in here and you can see a speed brake. See, it's right there just behind the cockpit. He's retracting it now.
Let me know when you're all set. We'll look at aircraft maneuverability next. Now let's look at the sustained turn rate. I'm going to put the aircraft into as tight a turn as possible while maintaining airspeed. Now this isn't the tightest turn I can make, but it's the one that I can sustain indefinitely. Now our relative performance will vary depending on loadout and fuel state, but I'm likely to have the advantage over you.
These practice maneuvers are really good. They give you some practice in combat maneuvering.
Now I'm going to turn as tightly as possible all the way up to the max G load available. The extra drag as my AOA ramps up exceeds the amount of thrust I have, so that causes me to lose airspeed very rapidly. You can use that to your advantage and turn inside my circle if I allow myself to get too slow. Now you're probably out of position, but that's okay. Just try to keep me in sight. I'm going to climb and let my speed bleed off into a tail slide. Now, your aircraft does not have the same high AOA capabilities, so don't try to follow me up. Just keep
Really good demonstration here of what is basically a Cobra maneuver.
Now in general, you want to avoid prolonged turning close-in engagements with my aircraft, and if you need to, completely disengage to retain higher energy for a possible re-attack.
So he climbs as hard as he can to gain some altitude, and this maneuver can have some use. But notice right there where he's out of energy and begins to fall, he's basically a sitting duck at that point, which is why I myself am not particularly fond of this maneuver. I think some would call it an act of desperation. Alright, he demos a few other things, but we are going to go ahead and get on to the one-on-one BFM combat practice. These missions are optional, but I very much recommend them if you need BFM practice.
This will be a defensive BFM setup for you. I'll enter 3 o'clock at about 9,000 feet range. I will be the attacker. I'll call for a 50-degree check turn to the left to put myself on an offensive perch. Reverse your turn at my reverse call, then maneuver at will and engage at my fights on call. Flanker 1, ready.
Colt 1 ready.
Check 50 left.
He's always going to start off at 9 to 12,000 feet away at your 3 o'clock. Follow the rules here and go ahead and turn 50 degrees to the left. Wait for the calls and engage. I know, it can be tempting to start early, but then you're not really learning anything.
Reverse.
Besides, when you learn how to air-to-air fight, you're going to find this is awfully easy. The Su-27 is not nearly as impressive as he makes it out to be. Don't know if you heard that there, but he called fights on. We're going to steer in hard now. By the way, you don't have a wingman for this. You are on your own. Now we are starting out in a defensive position, and because we have to turn so bloody much, we're going to lose a lot of energy. We're going to be traveling pretty slowly, which is going to make it hard for us to move, so I'm going to dump my nose really hard. In fact, I'm going to dump it almost to the ground to hurry up and build up some speed, and yet because I'm slower, I'm going to be able to turn faster than he can in that Sukhoi. And I'm going to use that little bit of extra energy I picked up in that maneuver to promptly take him out here. Always remember, a quick kill is the best kill.
Flanker 1, terminate.
Next mission, we'll be starting in an offensive position, so we won't have to worry about making up for
This will
energy.
be an offensive BFM setup for you at your 3 o'clock about 9,000 feet range. You will be the attacker. I'll call for a 50-degree check turn to the right to put you on an offensive perch. I'll reverse my turn at your reverse call. I will maneuver at will and engage at your fights on call. Flanker 1, ready.
Colt 1 ready.
Check 50 right.
Alright, he's pulling away and we're turning toward him, which is going to have us starting off in an extremely advantageous position, almost on his 6. But even if you take him out quickly in any of these missions, don't get cocky, it's only AI. Now he passes right in front of my nose here, but I don't bother with guns. He's just moving too fast to bother wasting the bullets. And besides, I've got him slotted in really nicely. And the best way to finish this enemy bird is to take him out with a short-range air-to-air. And boom, he is out of there. Now we're going to do a neutral BFM, which means we'll both be starting out with relatively equal advantage or disadvantage depending on your perspective.
This will be a neutral BFM setup. I'm at your 3 o'clock at about 12,000 feet range. We'll turn 45 degrees away from each other at my turn away call. Turn back and engage at will at my turn in and fights on call. Flanker 1, ready.
Colt 1 ready.
Turn away.
One point of note here, you should have your afterburners on from the moment you begin to turn away. Air-to-air battles are won on energy.
Turn in.
And energy is something you have to bank up, because every time you turn, you're paying for it. However, as you can see, we already have him slotted in a good position. And his nose isn't on us, we don't even have to worry about really defending. I'm just going to hold off shooting a moment to give him as little time to react as possible. Less time flares are burning, the less likely he's going to be able to pull away my missile shot. Did you notice how he didn't really even engage there? Not sure if that's an AI problem or if maybe this mission has been set to be just a little too easy. I seem to recall it being harder, maybe I just have gotten better. Anyway, he looks in a good position to take him out now.
Flanker 1, terminate.
Colt 1, terminate.
And down he goes. Let's go ahead and follow him. One thing DCS is really good at is very dramatic fireballs and smoke trails. I believe that black smoke means, among other things, he has oil fires going on, but hey, when the whole plane is breaking up, at that point it doesn't really matter, does it? Now notice how his shadow races up to meet the plane. That's one way you can tell how close things are to the ground when they're near the ground. If the shadow touches, they've touched the ground. So if you're flying a low-flying bird or chopper, don't let your shadow touch. If it touches, you're probably dead.
Okay, Colt 1, that's all we have for you. We'll meet up for a debrief at 1700. Flanker 1, out.
Well, that was a simple mission, simple air-to-air, a 2 versus 2 BVR engagement, and offensive, defensive, and neutral 1 versus 1 BFM engagements. Now we'll just fly the standard route back to Nellis and go ahead and set the bird down. Just a few parting words on the topic of air-to-air engagements. They can be and are far more complicated than you see here. This was air-to-air in its most basic format, just to really help you get a sense of the ship, its maneuvering capabilities, the enemy's maneuvering capabilities, and just what your missiles can do. But there's a lot more to it. Enemy ground radars, enemy air-to-air radars, electronic warfare, different types of air-to-air missiles we haven't even touched or looked at or considered yet. With something as complex as DCS or any realistic flight simulator, it's best to take the approach that you're going to bite off just little pieces, learn how to fly a little bit at a time. I've been using DCS for years and years, and every time I turn it on to this very day, I learn something new, every single time. But that's something I love about it. It's a never-ending process of learning and getting better. Thank you for watching Cerulean Skies, and if you liked what you see, please take a moment to like and subscribe. There will be plenty more.